For codominant alleles, so we talked about having recessive or dominant. Recessive or dominant alleles is when if you have at least one copy of the dominant allele, then that's the phenotypic trait that you have, right? If you're heterozygous for brown eyes, so you have one copy for brown, one copy for blue, you just end up with brown eyes. That's it. You don't get half blue, half brown, although that would be cool. And so codominant alleles, the idea is that neither allele is dominant or recessive. And so instead, in a heterozygote individual, which means that they have two different alleles, right? The idea is that both alleles are actually expressed. And I'm going to use chicken feather color for this, all right? And it's usually codominant alleles, rather than using one capital letter and one little letter because they're not dominant and recessive over each other, they're often written like this. So if you're talking about chicken feathers, chicken feather color, it's often written like this. You can have, this would be one allele, okay? And this would be for white feathers. And then this would be for black feathers. Okay, so if you wanted a homozygous, so a white individual, this would be the genotype that would lead to a white. All right, and would be the genotype of a black. And because they are codominant, if you are looking at a heterozygous individual, here, CBCW, then you don't get white or black. In fact, you get kind of a gray, okay? And so, sorry, these are the phenotypes up here. Okay, so if that's your heterozygous genotype, you end up with a gray. In chickens, it's actually called a blue, but if you look up pictures, they look gray. And the idea is that they have some black feathers and some white feathers. So that's a codominant allele, all right? And this is the typical way we write them. So there's actually two letters involved for a single allele. So these are your alleles, sorry, all right? Those are your alleles, and these are your genotypes, all right, with two alleles each. The other thing I want to say about this is that the Punnett squares work exactly the same way, right? So if I mate, let's say I mate a black individual with a gray individual, let's make it a little more interesting. So if I have CB, CB, and I cross them with a CB, CW, okay, then I would do a Punnett square the same way I would with anything else. What did I say? CB, CW, and this would be CB. So here you'd have let me write it in a different color. I can't get small enough otherwise. This would be CB. All right, and so this is how the Punnett square still works the same way, right? You take each allele and you put it into its individual gamete. And so then if you can see CB, 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 so you would have 50% black offspring and 50% gray offspring. All right, so that's codominant alleles. They're the same idea as the dominant recessive, but just make sure you're not phrasing it as such, because if you have a heterozygote individual, then both of the alleles are expressed. You get some white feathers and some black feathers.